Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk,
will he or won't he? That's the question. That's what everybody wants to know. Not what time is kickoff, not what channel is the game, not who's favored, the over-under, all that stuff. It's will John Mateer play or will he not? That's going to be the theme of the week for Sooner Nation. And that's going to be a kind of a prevalent theme throughout this episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. And look, here's the answer. Let me just tell you the answer right from the get-go. Nobody knows. And it doesn't matter what anybody tells you. Right now, I've got a pretty popular video going out there on our Facebook page where I'm giving you my opinion. It's just a clip from Sunday night's podcast where I said I don't think he's going to play. I think they played Michael Hawkins in such a way that they don't want to give up film. And I don't think John Mateer's playing. Now, I will be honest with you. I'm not as sold on that now as I was on Sunday, but I still say if you made me put money right now, I'm going to say he's not playing. And look, and I know what Brent Venables says, but there's some gamesmanship there. There's some strategy and planning there. I know, like, everyone, he's practicing indoors. Okay, whatever, dude. Why are they practicing indoors? Is it because John Mateer's playing, so they're practicing indoors to keep that a secret? Or is it because John Mateer's not playing and they're practicing indoors to keep that a secret? So where they are practicing has no bearing on this whatsoever. It's just they don't want anyone to know. And so we're going to actually find the true answer at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. And look, this was a gut punch. The news of this injury, you go all the way back to the celebration for that win over Auburn, and it was a gut punch because it came right after that. And so for the last couple of weeks, you know, we as Sooner Nation have kind of come down from that high that was the first 4 weeks. If you think about the Sooners, they're unbeaten. They're still 5-0. Their defense is still suffocating. And the offense has been, and it shows the ability to be dynamic. But the quarterback play was, compared to last year, was so much better. It's been everything that we had hoped it would be as Sooner Nation and then some. But that's where the story kind of takes a turn. Because when you get the news of the John Mateer injury, it didn't just change the planning for the next week. It really changed the planning for the next month. And it changed the conversation, right? It changed the conversation around Oklahoma football. This was supposed to be his season. The kid that transferred from Washington State had captured this fan base almost instantly. And it's not because he could throw the deep ball. It's not because he could escape pressure, but it's just because of that swagger that he brought back to Oklahoma's huddle. That's where all the Baker Mayfield comparisons started. And you can see it in the way that his teammates react to him. And the production on the field was good. I mean, he backed it up with what he did. Through 4 games, he had thrown for over 1,200 yards. He accounted for 11 total touchdowns. And he had Oklahoma looking like a legitimate SEC contender in his first season. But then it all stopped, right? The thumb injury on his throwing hand, surgery, sideline. And now Oklahoma's story has shifted from domination to, I think, definition. Like, what does this program look like without him? What is the identity now? So let's start with what we know and what we don't know. What we do know is that John Mateer had surgery on September 24th. That was during the bye week. We know that Brent Venables has been very careful with how much he shares. And when asked directly about the timeline, Brent Venables said this: he's doing no good on good work right now. That's coach speak for saying he's not taking contact. He's not fully cleared. And Brent Venables went on to say, I don't know when John Mateer will be back. He's on a progression. However long it takes those injuries to heal. So what we're dealing with is a lot of maybes right now. And yet you got reports coming up that Mateer is pushing to return for the Texas game because he wants to play. I mean, of course he is. Of course he's pushing to play. Of course he wants to play. That doesn't mean he can play. And he's not been ruled out. But there's a fine line. There's a fine line here between toughing it out and making it worse. And that's the tension that Oklahoma faces as Saturday comes. It's a risk versus reward. Do you push your QB1 into one of the most physical rivalries in college football when his throwing hand just came out of surgery? Or do you trust your system and your depth just to carry you over for one more week? Because we're in the era of the expanded college football playoff. And I think most of Sooner Nation would tell you that even without John Mateer, Oklahoma has a shot to beat Texas on Saturday. But I also think most of the college football world would say without John Mateer, a one-loss Oklahoma team would still have a statement not only to be in the SEC championship game, but also the college football playoff. You lose to Texas, it hurts your pride. It doesn't hurt your chances for the conference championship, and it doesn't hurt your shot at the college football playoff. But we put Michael Hawkins into the conversation now. And he stepped up against Kent State. He did exactly what was asked of him. He wasn't flashy, but he was efficient. 162 passing yards, 33 rushing yards, no turnovers. That's the best part. No turnovers. And seemingly no panic. Now, that's a game Oklahoma won 44-0, right? Sure, it's Kent State. It's not Alabama. But what you can't fake is poise. And I believe Michael Hawkins showed a lot of poise on Saturday. And so this week, maybe it becomes the face of that next man up mentality. And the job isn't to be a hero, it's to keep the ship steady. And if it is Michael Hawkins who takes the field Saturday, here's what he absolutely has to do. He has to show continuity, not chaos. What I mean by that is this. Michael Hawkins doesn't have to light up the scoreboard. He doesn't have to light up the stat sheet. He just needs to move the chains. He needs to keep the defense fresh, and he needs to avoid the kind of mistakes that flip the field and momentum. He needs to complement the defense. Look, we know, regardless of what happens on the offensive side of the ball, we know that this Oklahoma defense is elite. Not just top tier SEC good, but top in the nation good. Now they've learned to force turnovers to go along with dominating the line of scrimmage. So Hawkins' job is just to play within that strength, not against it. Don't put them in a bad situation. And then grow under pressure. You know, he was here in this exact same spot last year. And this is baptism by fire. But if he can stay composed under that kind of a spotlight, even if they lose, he'll earn something that he hasn't really had labeled on him yet, which is just respect. But I think if he stays poised and he doesn't turn the ball over, I think Oklahoma's in a very good position to win this game. And if Oklahoma does that, then they prove something it's much bigger than just quarterback depth. They prove stability. And stability is what separates good programs from great programs. And when you look at this entire situation, this whole stretch from Mateer's injury to this week's rivalry game, it's the reality about the identity of Oklahoma football. We've spent years talking about the Sooners as a quarterback factory. Baker, Kyler, Jalen, Caleb, and the list goes on and on and on. Spencer, look at all the starters in the NFL on Sunday. But this version of Oklahoma, this Brent Venables version, it's trying to build something different, something tougher, something more sustainable. And so now we get to see if they're built for this. Is it possible for the offense to function in this setting without the guy that it was designed around? Can Oklahoma keep balance without losing explosiveness? Can they show the country that Oklahoma isn't just about the quarterback anymore, that this is a defense that dominates, that this is a system that produces, and that's a culture that can carry the load? Because if they can do that, if they can beat Texas or even just go toe-to-toe with the Longhorns without Mateer, it does send a message, not just to the SEC, but across the country, that Oklahoma, they're not here just to participate. They're here to contend. And there's a way that Oklahoma could walk off this field losing on the scoreboard, but winning in the hearts, if you know what I mean. Because if you lose this game by a field goal without your starting quarterback, no one's writing off Oklahoma as a contender. So here's my take. And I'm going to just be as real as I can be. I do believe Oklahoma absolutely needs John Mateer if they want to hit their ceiling. I think he's too dynamic. I think he's too natural of a playmaker to just replace. He's the guy who gives Ben Arbochel's offense its rhythm. And when he's healthy, the Sooners look like the top team in the country that they are. Your top 5, top 4, top 6, wherever you want to put them. But here's the flip side. And maybe the silver lining. This moment gives Oklahoma a chance to prove that they won't collapse without him. If Hawkins can hold the line, if the defense continues to dominate, and the offense finds its way to stay balanced, then this program becomes something stronger than it was before. It has that resilience label. So the kind of team that doesn't panic when the star goes down, that's the kind of team that believes in the logo. Not just the name on the back of the jersey, that it is a team concept. And honestly, that is exactly what championship DNA looks like. So it's Tuesday. If you're a frequent listener to the Sooner Nation podcast, you know what that means. That means it's SEC Power Rankings Day. We release our weekly power rankings on the website, heartland-sports.com. But I also I started doing this, I think last week or maybe the week before, just kind of give you where I stand on this. And first of all, let me just say this. I'm a nobody. I love our social media interactions. If you don't get a part of that, please feel free to look us up. Facebook is where most of our stuff happens. I know I'm old, so Facebook's there. But, people get mad. They get mad if their team's not ranked where they think you should rank them. And so someone threw it out there like, who are you? Blah, 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 blah. You know what? I'm a nobody. I'm a fan of college football. I'm more so a fan of the Oklahoma Sooners. I watch a lot of college football. I watch a lot of Oklahoma Sooners. And because I'm a fan of the Sooners, I watch a lot of SEC football. And I'm surrounded by a group of guys who do the same. And so we put out our power rankings based on what we believe. But at the end of the day, I'm a nobody who has an opinion, who likes to talk. And that's where we are. So as we go into week 7 of the 2025 season, I want to tell you how I voted. And we've got some familiar faces kind of holding steady on my ballot. We've got a few programs that are free falling. And then we've got one team standing firmly on the throne. And spoiler alert, yes, that team still wears crimson and cream. So let's start at the bottom and work our way to the top. At number 16, I've got Arkansas. And look, things have just gone from bad to worse in Fayetteville. Firing Sam Pittman was probably the right decision, but it left the program rudderless. And look, I know they were off, but everyone still has that loss to Notre Dame where they just looked like a team out of gas. And at this point of the season, you kind of feel like it's a program left playing for pride, not positioning. But in this conference, pride only gets you so far, especially when you can't protect your quarterback. I've got Kentucky at number 15 this week, and I just kind of feel bad for Kentucky fans. And I'm a fan of the Stoops name. I'm a fan of Mark Stoops, Bob Stoops, Mike Stoops. If Stoops is your last name, I'm a fan. But the Wildcats just don't have the offensive spark to compete with the big boys in this conference. And Georgia rolled them. Defense was once the calling card there because of the name Stoops, but they can't hold up, right? They just can't hold up. And I think Mark Stoops is running out of answers. And this SEC gauntlet's not slowing down anytime soon. I've got Auburn at number 14. And I think you do have to give Hugh Freeze some credit. I know he's kind of feeling the pressure, but man, his guys play hard. I mean, but I think this is a program that's still fully in rebuild mode. There are moments when you can see flashes of what's coming, but they just can't put 4 quarters of football together. And I think maybe there's a foundation being laid, but it's still about development, and I don't know that keeps Hugh Freeze going. South Carolina, number 13. This is a team that's scrappy, but I think they also have a knack to fade. I think it's a defense that plays with effort, but not endurance. And the offense, sometimes they just can't close drives. They're kind of like Auburn in that they're competitive, but as we know, as Auburn learned, the SEC does not hand out participation trophies. Now, they will put out a reprimand if you fail to cover a receiver, but that's a whole different story. Florida's number 12. This was the interesting move for me this week, what to do with the Gators. They finally showed a pulse. They upset Texas 29-21. DJ Lagway finally had a strong showing, and it's the kind of game Billy Napier he had to have. I mean, he had to have this type of win to keep the fan base believing in him, or maybe to get them to start believing in him again. I think this team, I've said it from the get-go, the Gators have talent. In this conference, there's no question they have talent. But now it's about consistency. Can they build off of this, or was that going to be a one-week blip for them? More so a one-week blip for Texas. 11 is Mississippi State. They are, I think, the definition of scrappy but limited. I think their defense is tough, but offensively, they're just not built yet to hang with the elite teams in this conference. And we saw that with Texas A&M 31-9. The Aggies showed exactly where the ceiling is. And look, Mississippi State, they're going to give teams trouble, but I don't think they're kind of breaking through the glass, so to speak, yet. That moves us into the top 10, where I've got Vanderbilt at number 10. This is no longer the SEC's automatic win. They hung with Alabama for 3 quarters, and that means something. The Commodores are physical, they're well coached, and they believe in themselves. So I don't think you can laugh at Vanderbilt anymore. I don't. They're not. I don't know that I'm going to say that they're contenders, but they're absolutely They're absolutely competitors. And even though they lost, we saw them compete toe-to-toe with Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Number 9 is Missouri. They've kind of been hovering around the middle all year. I got to be honest with you. I'm trying to figure out what to do with the Tigers because they could have easily been number 8 this week. But at number 8, I've got Texas. And I'm just thinking to myself, if Missouri and Texas play, now everyone in Columbia is going to say, yeah, Missouri wins that game. Everyone in Austin says, oh, Texas never loses, except for the times we lose. But that doesn't count because we have an excuse. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with these two teams. I think the effort's there for Missouri. I think sometimes the execution isn't. And I think if they can clean some things up, I really feel like they've got a chance to be an October surprise. So now, let's talk about the Longhorns, because it is officially Texas Hate Week here in Sooner Nation. This loss dropped them. It dropped them hard, not just in my rankings, but in everybody's rankings, out of the top 25. And they don't look like the team that we were promised back in August, right? That team we were promised back in August, that was all about the playoff chatter. They were the front runners in the SEC. They were the front runners to make the college football playoff. And I'm not saying that they can't be that team, but they're not. They are not. Arch Manning's not found a rhythm against elite teams. He can flex on Sam Houston, but he can't find anything other than turnovers against Ohio State and Florida. And then the defense gave up too many big plays. And I'm a believer in the Texas defense. But you look at the two respectable teams on their schedule, 0-2. 0-2. And I know Sark made this big comment about, yeah, you look at our 2 losses, and a lot of teams are going to lose to those 2 losses. Really? Maybe you've got the Ohio State argument, but I don't think that argument holds water with Florida. Because Lagway threw 5 interceptions against LSU. So, look, they're 0-for against respectable teams. Their margin of error is gone. And I think the hype train has officially derailed. And as an Oklahoma fan, it makes me happy, but it really scares me for Saturday. We'll talk more about that later in the week. Tennessee, number 7, don't look now, but Tennessee, I think they're a team that can get things together and make some noise. They're not out of this race. It's not a team that's going to give you a lot of fireworks. It's not a team that's going to give you a lot of chaos. They're just going to play solid, balanced football. They're not flashy, but they find ways to win. And in this conference, that's what keeps you relevant, especially as you go into the month of October. I think the Vols are a team to keep an eye on. LSU at number 6, still a team I haven't figured out. And I don't think they've figured them out down in Baton Rouge either. This is a mystery. Because you've got an offense that can light up the scoreboard at times, but you've got a defense that just keeps springing leaks. And so one week, they look like they might be contenders in the conference. And then the next week, they look like they're relegated to just that role of being a spoiler. The talent's there with LSU. I don't know that the discipline is. And they've got to clean some things up. But they're on the upper side of the middle of the pack. They're not top 5, but they're definitely not out of the top 10. And so here we go, top 5. Starting with Ole Miss at number 5. They were idle this week, but look, they're a lot of people have them higher. They are the highest ranked team in the conference. Lane Kiffin has always had explosive offenses around him, but now he's got an opportunistic defense. And you look at what's coming up, it's going to be a defining moment for them because this Saturday is Washington State. But then they're on the road at Georgia, on the road at Oklahoma. And that's going to tell us whether they're real contenders or just kind of guys who pat stats, whether they're going to move up or whether they're going to move down. Here's the first really dangerous team that I think is probably being overlooked outside of College Station. I've got Texas A&M at number 4. Mike Elko has built something, I think, legit in College Station. And it's been a while since we've been able to use the word legit and College Station at the same time. But the Aggies dominated Mississippi State, and they're doing it with balance. They're physical on the ground, they're disciplined on defense, and they're efficient through the air. I mean, this legit looks like a team that belongs in the SEC title conversation. And that's saying something when we're talking about Texas A&M. I've got Georgia at number 3. They're not going away from me. I still say they're a challenger. And they did exactly what you would expect from a Kirby Smart team coming off of a loss. They answered. 35-14 over Kentucky. Yeah, I know it was Kentucky. But it was a reminder that the Bulldogs' depth is still elite. They are, I believe, the deepest team in this conference. And they're not out of the playoff picture. They're not out of the conference title picture. This is not a team at this moment that I think you can count out as much as some people want to. Now, the team that's making waves right now, undoubtedly, is Alabama. Now, I've still got them at number 2. But Ty Simpson, 340 yards against Vandy. The running game clicked. The defense looked mean. Alabama's playing angry, and they're playing focused. And when they do that, you can kind of see and feel that old Crimson Tide swagger starting to creep back. They are right on the heels of Oklahoma. And if the Sooners slip, you know Bama's ready to pounce. But I've still got Oklahoma on top of the conference. They are at the top of the mountain. 44-0 over Kent State. It was Kent State. But it was exactly what this team needed after what was a physical September stretch. We've talked about Michael Hawkins already. Spoiler alert, we're probably going to talk about him again before this podcast episode ends. But he looked calm, he looked confident, and he looked mature. We know about the defense. We know they're suffocating. We know that this is a Brent Venables football team through and through. Physical, disciplined, and balanced. So yeah, I mean, there are much tougher games coming. But right now, I think that next to Georgia, Oklahoma is the most complete team in the SEC. Period. So there you have it. Those are my Week 7 power rankings. Florida, Vanderbilt, they're on the rise. Texas tumbles. Alabama's charging. But Oklahoma still is kings of the mountain right now. And when you look at this conference, yep, they added new logos. They added new rosters. But the one thing that hasn't changed in the SEC is that every Saturday is a test. And you've got to be a complete team to survive October and be in the hunt when it comes to November. There's about 5 teams right now that fit that bill. All right. Well, once again, I want to say thanks for tuning in to the Sooner Nation podcast. Wherever you find us, man, we really appreciate you coming along this journey. If you would give us a like or a subscribe, whatever platform you're using to get us, just again, it goes a long way for us to help us. But man, it's just a way we want to say thank you. It means a lot. So, pretty big game on Saturday. The Cotton Bowl's pretty much going to come alive. Burnt orange, crimson, and cream. Only one of those colors is pretty. But it's the biggest matchup of the season for both schools every year, regardless of the rankings, regardless of the schedules, regardless of the standings, regardless of the records. Oklahoma versus Texas in the Red River rivalry is pageantry at its best in the realm of college football. And this one is just loaded with storylines. Typically, you've got storylines. Typically, you've got drama. But I think the uncertainty with the quarterback position really just kind of adds more intrigue here than what's ever been there before. With from Sooner Nation's perspective, all of our eyes are on John Mateer. As I started this podcast, the number one question is, will he or won't he? And I think it's not just Sooner Nation asking that question. I think Burnt Orange Nation's asking that question. Everyone's asking, and it's really kind of hanging over this game like a cloud. But as we are going to talk about, as we have talked about, even with that uncertainty at the position, Oklahoma has identity. The Sooners have depth, and they have a defense that can carry them if things don't go perfectly on offense. And so in our first effort to break this game down for this week, let's do this. Let's try to remember a season where Oklahoma's fate felt so closely tied into a single player. And I know it's happened, but how recently? But you've got John Mateer, who, as I said earlier, has been everything we had hoped he'd be. In terms of, he's dynamic, he's composed, he's electric when he has the ball in his hands. And we've seen his stats, the 1,200 yards, the 6 touchdowns, the 200 yards, 200 yards on the ground. 5 more rushing touchdowns. That's a dual threat weapon. And that's why Oklahoma's offense looked so great through the first 4 games. But they couldn't run the ball. Well, they did really? Because, 5 rushing touchdowns. Maybe they can't traditionally run the football. But John Mateer was making it work. But then you've got the thumb injury. Then you've got the surgery. And now, at least temporarily, at least Oklahoma's corner of the SC landscape, it's got a little bit shakier. And we know what Brent Venables said. And he went on. I don't think I gave this quote earlier, but basically said we're not putting him in harm's way before he's ready. And honestly, I think that's what we need to hear. You want to protect the player first. The player, in situations like this, the player comes before the program. Now, that's not true in every situation, but certainly in a health type situation, that's the case. But we know he's pushing to play. We know that he wants to be on that field. And we know that competitive fire that he has. That's the hallmark of great quarterbacks. But ultimately, we also know this comes down to the medical staff. We know this comes down to Brent Venables' judgment. And again, that's how it should be. Sooner Nation wants him out there, but I think, at least I hope, Sooner Nation wants him healthy first. And so that, again, puts Michael Hawkins Jr., when you're talking about this game from any perspective, he's in the spotlight. It'll be, if Mateer can't go, which again, where my stance is, I don't think he will. And again, Michael Hawkins Jr. was not flashy against Kent State, but he was effective. And I like, Caleb brought it up Sunday night in that episode, post-game episode, but just the short field that Oklahoma played with and how that affected the total yardage of the game. And that's such a solid point. But he didn't need to make highlight reel plays against Kent State, although he did. What he needed to do was manage the game, and that's exactly what he did. And my favorite part continues to be, I've gone back and I've broken down film again. I've watched things. My favorite part continues to be the fact that he didn't turn the ball over. And that's what Oklahoma needs again this weekend in the Cotton Bowl if it's Hawkins. That efficiency, that composure, that trust in his supporting cast. And Oklahoma has weapons. Isaiah Sategna, pretty good weapon. Torrey Blaylock seems to be a pretty good weapon. We know Jaron Kanik is a weapon. Deion Burks, a weapon. And these are all guys who didn't play in their capacities they're in now last year in this game. They're all guys who can stretch the Texas defense. They're guys who can make plays after the catch. They can keep drives alive. And so again, Michael Hawkins doesn't have to do it all. He just needs to let the offense play, let the defense do its thing, and avoid making big mistakes. And speaking of the defense, we've not spoken of it enough, particularly in this episode, but that's where Oklahoma shines. The front seven is deep. They're disciplined and they're disruptive. The secondary is physical and smart. They're learning to be opportunistic. And through 6 weeks, they're allowing just 11 points a game. And I don't think I have to tell you how phenomenal that is. First shutout of the season last week against Kent State. Second shutout in Brent Venables' tenure. Those are rare. Shutouts are rare. Kip Lewis leading this team in tackles. I mean, Gentry Williams just kind of seems to be the lockdown guy. Getting Eli Bowen back is just going to add to the coverage. And hopefully all of that, when you look at the pressure that, R. Mason Thomas and that company brings, this is an offense, a Texas offense that can be mistake prone. And this is an Oklahoma defense that can force mistakes. And in a rivalry game like this, defense, it's not just defense. It sets the tone. It keeps the other team uncomfortable, and it keeps the fans energized. And it puts pressure where it belongs on the opposition. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor. Which defense gets the most pressure? Because when you look across the field, Texas is going to lean on Arch Manning. They need him. They desperately need him to find his rhythm against a top-tier opponent. I think he has good arm talent, but he's still learning how to navigate elite defenses. And let's be honest, he's about to face one of the best defenses in the country. And the Longhorns have their weapons as well. Parker Livingston has been pretty phenomenal for them. And I know he's dealing with a leg injury, but I think he's going to play. But man, Oklahoma's defensive line, they will be aggressive. Remember, all 5 sacks last week came from the defensive line. But this week, you can expect blitz packages. You can expect disguised fronts. And you're going to expect a game plan that's designed to keep Manning uncomfortable. And if Oklahoma can limit the big plays and win early downs, if they can control the tempo, that's exactly where Brent Venables wants this game to be. And don't forget what's at stake here, right? It's the golden hat. But it's more than that. It's tradition, it's pride, it's momentum. It affects recruiting. It affects coaches' contracts. It affects, the fan base. It affects donors all across the table here. There's a ripple effect. But for Oklahoma, this is also just another litmus test. Can this team handle adversity? Can they stay disciplined even with the injuries and all the noise around them? And Brent Venables had a quote, along the lines of, these are the moments you come to Oklahoma for. The pageantry, the competition, the challenge, and it's what this program was built on. He's right. This isn't just about the players who are going to suit up on Saturday. It's about the program's identity. It's about resilience, toughness. It's about execution. So what do we need to see from the Sooners on Saturday? I think the most important thing we need to see is they've got to protect the football. I think turnovers are going to be a big factor in this game in terms of momentum swing. If it's only 1, it better be in Oklahoma's favor. If it's 2 or 3, it better be in Oklahoma's favor. I think turnovers are big, and the Sooners have to protect the ball. They've got to win in the trenches. They've got an advantageous matchup against this Texas offensive line. But then the flip side of that is I think maybe the Texas defensive line has an advantageous matchup against Oklahoma's offensive line. The trenches are going to be big factors here. And I think you got to if you're Oklahoma, let the defense set the tone. I think if you keep Texas 17 to 24 points, historically that favors the Sooners. Somehow, some way, Oklahoma's got to find the running game. The Sooners needed to control the clock. They needed to relieve pressure on their quarterback. And they needed to just kind of lean on that Texas defensive front and let their own defense refresh. And finally, they got to finish strong. I mean, rivalry games are emotional sprints. And execution in the fourth quarter typically matters the most. So whether it's John Mateer or Michael Hawkins, the thing is that Oklahoma walks into this game with an identity and with confidence. Defense, check. Ground game, it's coming. Playmakers, check. And even if the offense isn't perfect, the team can win on grit, discipline, and toughness. One of the things that we've seen from Texas this season in the two losses is they shy away from physicality. And you better believe Oklahoma knows that. And you better believe the Sooners are going to bring the physicality. But Saturday's not just going to be a test of talent. It's going to be a test of resolve. And when the dust settles, we'll know whether this Oklahoma team is just a quarterback away from being where we want them to be, or if they're already built to rise above adversity and chase down the SEC crown. So that's our first breakdown. We'll have more on the website this week, heartland-sports.com. Caleb and I are going to be back Thursday night. That's when you're going to get our score predictions. But man, until then, soak in the appreciation. Saturday's coming, and I think it's going to be a fun day. And there's a lot at stake, but there's also a lot to gain. That's why there's a lot at stake, right? Have a good rest of your week. We'll talk to you Thursday night. We'll see you on the website. We'll see you on social media. Boomer Sooner.